Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to be doing a meta prediction video for Peoria Regionals. Of course, Peoria is this weekend. It is going to be a massive tournament. There's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of different decks. The meta is pretty wide open right now. It does feel like you could honestly just play anything right now and it could win games. And I'm excited to kind of break down what I think is going to happen at Peoria this weekend and what decks might be good and what surprises we might see. Of course, this is the first major tournament with 151 legal, so there are going to be some pretty big things going down. I'm going to predict what's going to be popular and all that stuff and what might see play at Peoria. I'm excited. Of course, I'm not going to be in attendance, but hopefully anyone going to Peoria maybe can get some valuable information out of this video too. Going into Peoria. Of course, if you're new to the second channel here, make sure to subscribe down below if you're interested in the content here on the channel, and you can leave a like in the video if you go on to enjoy today's meta prediction. Now let's get into it. Starting things off, I got Giratina here as maybe one of the BDIFs. Well, this deck might not be BDIF. I do think it will be one of the top 3 most popular decks. Giratina is a very, very strong deck, and it's one of those like default decks that people play just because A, it's good, it has good matchups, it's got a good Charizard matchup, right? So I could definitely see Giratina being popular. Whether or not the deck performs well, of course, is a different story. A lot of people like to kind of meme on this deck, but I do think Giratina is genuinely like a decent deck, and I think it's an okay call for the tournament. If you're expecting to see a lot of Charizard, it's not a bad deck. I think Giratina probably needs to play Temple of Sinnoh because of how good Lugia is right now. And that's one thing that scares people away from playing Tina is while the deck is good and while it has a great Charizard matchup, Mew EX does offer some pretty scary situations for Tina to be in. So it definitely has problems, and I don't think it's a perfect deck right now in the format. I do think it's a very default play deck where people are going to play it. They didn't know what to play to the tournament. There's so many options. I'm seeing a lot of tweets right now and people just saying they don't know what to play to Peoria. This could easily be one of the default decks people just go to. Just because it's a very simple deck, very, very good. Doesn't really have any bad matchups, apart from maybe Colorless Lugia. That's like officially maybe Tina's worst matchup now. Next up, we got Gardy, another just insanely powerful deck. I think we're going to see a lot of big players on Gardevoir. I'm sure Tord is probably going to be playing Gardevoir too. I think Gardevoir is in a great spot. Whether or not you want to play the Mew EX is up to you, but I do think Gardevoir is a very good deck. I 100% think we're going to see a Gardevoir in top 8 at Peoria. I'm going to say right now there will be a Gardevoir in top 8 in Peoria. Whether or not it wins the tournament, we'll think of that later, but I do think Gardevoir will be in top 8. It's just a very strong archetype still. It's got a fine Charizard matchup. I think people are really overreacting to the Charizard matchup. Yeah, I think Gardy's just a very good deck in the meta. And doesn't really get worse with any new decks. I mean, Charizard, I think, is not the worst matchup ever, thanks to the fact that you can easily KO 3 Charizards, or even KO Charizards and Pidgeots pretty efficiently with Gardy's damage output. But yeah, Gardy definitely is one of the best decks right now in the format. Next up, we got the Charizard variants. Of course, there are 4 ways to play it. I think Charizard is going to be insanely popular. In fact, there's a good chance Charizard is the most popular deck in the tournament because it's just, there's 4 ways to play it. It's getting a lot of hype right now. It won, big regionals. It's getting a lot of groundswell. There is a very high chance we are going to see Charizard be the most played deck in Peoria. You know, they have that graphic showing the most played archetypes. Charizard will most likely be the #1 most played deck, or at least #2. It's definitely going to be 1 or 2 in terms of popularity. Now, we'll see how it performs. I do think that the Arvenzaar build is the best way to play it. It's kind of the build that everybody's kind of defaulted to. Is like, yeah, this is the best way to play Charizard, is this Arven build with the Penny. Whether or not you tech the Mawile is up to you. I think Mawile is worth playing still. In a best-of-1 scenario, Mawile can easily win you a best-of-1 set. But yeah, I do think that Charizard is very good right now and is without a doubt one of the strongest decks in the format. Whether or not it, ends up flopping at Peoria, we could see a situation where Charizard is the most popular deck in the tournament and then it flops, no Charizard get top 8. We're probably going to see a Charizard in top 8. There is a pretty good chance we'll see a Charizard break the top 8 just because it's just such a strong archetype and there's 4 different ways to play it. It's 100% going to be the most popular deck in Peoria. It's probably going to be a Charizard in top 8. Then we got to talk about the Charizard Pidgeot Arc build. Another kind of default deck. I know people are really a big fan of this archetype. It's the first way to play the deck that everybody kind of was on, and I think it's going to be pretty popular in Peoria. And probably the second most popular, or even the most popular way to play Charizard. Like, the Arvenzaar build, I think a lot of people agree is maybe the best way, but I can say that this is probably going to be the most popular way to play the deck, even if it isn't the greatest way to play Charizard right now. But yeah, I can definitely see the Charizard Arceus deck being pretty popular too. It's, I think a lot of people's kind of safe play too. It's kind of the deck that people play the most on live. I don't really run into as much other Zard variants over the Arczard build, so I definitely think we're going to see a lot of Zard in Peoria too. And then we got to talk about Gardevoir, another kind of sleeper Charizard deck. A lot of people actually will say this is the best way to play Charizard. I'm kind of, in disagreement with that. I don't know if this is the best way to play it because its Lost Zone matchup feels shaky, but I do think it is a pretty solid deck regardless. I think that Gardevoir is still solid enough, and I think it's still going to be represented. I don't think it's going to perform as well. I don't think we're going to see Gardevoir in top 8 unless somebody figures out a cool, technology piece this deck could gain, but it still will be good. I mean, we'll probably see maybe 1 or 2 Gardevoirs in day 2, but I don't know if it'll get any farther than that. But I do think Lost Zone Charizard will have a decent performance. There's a few people that are sold in this deck. Some people will even say that this is the best way to play Charizard EX, but I don't know if we'll see a Lost Zard in top 8. I think we have a higher chance of seeing Arczard or Arvenzard in top 8 than we do Lost Zard, but I can see Lost Zard making it far. Maybe a Lost Zard in top 16. I think a couple big players might actually be on this deck this weekend, to be honest, so I could see it happening. I think this deck is fine. The one prize option is nice. Again, like I said, losing access to Pidgeot is the only thing that kind of throws it off, but I can see a Lost Zone Charizard being maybe the second, third best performing Charizard deck this weekend. But yeah, like I said, Charizard's going to be the most popular deck. I think we're going to see at least one Charizard in top 8 this weekend. Next up is the Lost Zone variant. So I think that Turbo Lost Box is great right now. Another very popular pick by a lot of the big players. I think we're going to see some pretty big name players on the Turbo build. Whether or not they're playing the Kyogre is up to you to decide, but I can definitely see Turbo Lost Box having a good performance. The addition of Mew EX is pretty insane, not to mention people might start teching in Tropius or Shaman V into their Turbo deck to try to beat Charizard. So again, Charizard will be very popular this weekend, so I could definitely see Turbo seeing a lot more play with Shaman, but I do think Turbo is still going to be a very highly represented deck. In fact, there's a good chance we'll see Lost Zone variants in the third most played deck. I think the top 3 most played decks is going to be Giratina, Charizard. It's going to be Charizard, Giratina, or Charizard, Lost Box, Giratina. That's my prediction. But yeah, this is definitely a very strong deck, a very safe pick for a lot of the big players, and there's a lot of ways to kind of formulate the Lost Zone deck right now, and I think it's just very good. But of course, Kyogre is still good too. I think Kyogre is really good right now with how popular Lugia is. That's the big selling point to playing Kyogre right now is Lugia is really, really popular. There is a lot of Lugia right now. Everyone's on the Lugia train, and with how popular Lugia is, it's actually a pretty safe play to play Kyogre due to Lugia's immense popularity right now. But yeah, Kyogre definitely is a very good pick still. It does have that shaky Zard matchup, but you do have the Shaman, and I can see Shaman being popular within Kyogre. But yeah, I think that Kyogre is a great play still for Peoria. It's still a very hard deck to pilot, so it's not like, the average player is going to play it and, do well with it. It's obviously a deck where we're going to see the big name players on it and do well with it. But yeah, I definitely think Kyogre is super strong, and maybe with Shaman we'll see it, do better against Charizard, because maybe Shaman's all you need to do to beat Charizard. Because other than that, Kyogre's great. With how popular Lugia might be, there's a very good reason to play Charizard, or play Kyogre. Next up is the Lugia decks. Of course, Lugia is all the talk right now. Specifically, Colorless Lugia is dominating the online tourneys. It is seeing the most amount of play right now in the meta. I think a lot of people are saying that Colorless Lugia is the best deck right now in the format. I'm disagreeing with that. I think the deck is still very strong. Lugia will still lose to its own inconsistencies. It does have tendencies to brick and have bad draws. There's a lot of different ways to play Colorless Lugia. That's the first thing to note is, everyone kind of defaults to the Snorlax, Mew, Weirdeer. There's still a couple ways you can build your deck. I've seen builds using Path and Slacking. I've seen builds using Choice Belts. I've seen builds playing Lost City. I've seen builds using Ditto, Double Mew, Choice Belt's another really good card. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of take Colorless Lugia. That's one thing that kind of holds me back. I would consider Colorless Lugia for Peoria if I was going, but with all the different, ways to kind of build your deck, you definitely have to test your build. If you have a couple different ideas with the deck, I definitely would say test Colorless Lugia. If you're locked into Lugia this weekend, I would say test different ideas with Colorless Lugia. Again, if you're playing Belt or Path or Slacking, whatever, Kangaskhan, whatever attacker, whatever tech card you want to play, definitely feel free, because Colorless Lugia is definitely the deck that can get teched out the most right now in the format, other than Lost Box, of course. But definitely feels like Colorless Lugia is very popular. It's going to be a big showing. I mean, there's a debate that this could be in top 3. I think Colorless Lugia, I don't know, maybe Lugia will actually be top 3. Maybe Tina's going to be 4th. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I take that back. I think Lugia is actually going to be the 3rd most played deck behind Charizard and Lost Box, because there's 2 versions of Lugia as opposed to one Tina variant. Okay, Tina's still probably going to be top by most popular deck, but I think Lugia is going to definitely be the 3rd most popular deck. Then Single Strike is good. Now, my issue with Single Strike, it has a bit of a worse Charizard matchup. You can play the Cobalion and make it a little bit easier. You do have Mew EX, which is good because you can kind of use Mew as a good late-game attacker in a Charizard, especially if you do attack with a one-prizer like Stone or Yveltal, because you can go knock out one Charizard Lugia, maybe knock out with Tyranitar and then close with Lugia or Mew maybe. I don't know. It's tricky, but if your opponent ever takes a one-price KO with Charizard, you can easily force the Mew on them and make it really easy for you to win the game with a Mew copying a big 330 damage attack. But I think Single Strike is still strong. I still think this might be the better way to play Lugia. I also think Single Strike has a better mirror match, but I don't know if we're going to see Single Strike do as well due to how good Charizard is. Charizard is a shaky matchup for this deck, but I do think that Single Strike is going to be popular still. It's still a great deck, and the raw power it has is still insane. Also, having the Dark-type attackers is still very undervalued right now, in my opinion, in the format. Rapid Strike is going to be very good, in my opinion. Rapid Strike seems like a pretty safe play for this tournament. Despite Lugia being popular, I still think Rapid Strike is good because Mew is very much on the downswing right now. Mew is falling out of contention of being a popular deck. And, I mean, there's a good chance you can go 9 rounds day one, not hit a single Mew. I wouldn't have said that in Pittsburgh, but I can safely say that going into Peoria. And I think that Rapid Strike is a great play for Peoria because it's got a good Zard matchup. A good Rapid Strike player can easily beat Charizard. You can control the damage they do. That's the first thing you want to take note of. You don't have to even take a knockout and make Charizard do more than 180 damage. Like, that's how good this deck is against Charizard. I think this deck is great. It's got a good Lost Zone matchup, which is expected to be popular. It's got a good Guardy matchup, which is also going to be popular. Your Lugia matchup might be shaky. I actually think this deck has a better Colorless Lugia matchup than a Single Strike matchup. So this deck can probably be better in a Single Strike or Colorless Lugia than Single Strike, in my opinion, even with the Mew EX. It's not that big of a deal. This is why I like maybe playing Choice Belt in Colorless Lugia, because you can copy Gale Thrust. But I do think that Rapid Strike will be good. I definitely think we'll see a couple big players on it and do well. Can it get top 8? I don't know if we can get top 8. I think Lugia can get top 8 over Rapid Strike, but Rapid Strike will have a couple deep runs. Then we got to talk about the Shenpao deck. I am a huge fan. This feels like the sleeper deck of the format right now. It feels like a very good archetype and a good play. I mean, Shenpao has a great matchup against Lugia and Charizard because it's so easy just to go back-to-back knockouts every single turn. This deck is very powerful. I think the Canadian Shenpao deck, as it's called, with the Bibarels and the Pokestops, I think it's a great deck. I can actually see Shenpao getting top 8 again. It's one of those decks that I don't think will be very popular or very represented or respected, and there's going to be a few deep runs with Shenpao. I 100% think we might see Shenpao in top 8 in Peoria. Feels like a deck, because you're just going to farm all the Charizards and the Lugias, and it's got a good matchup spread in general. I think it's good against Moraidon, because against Moraidon, you just do not put a Shenpao play until you have to, unless you start with it. You can beat Gardevoir pretty easily. Lost Box is a decent matchup. I think it's a great deck. I think Shenpao has a good chance of going far this weekend in Peoria, and I would bet maybe we'll see back-to-back Shenpao top 8. Moraidon feels like it's fallen out of favor. I don't think Moraidon is going to have the greatest performance this weekend. In fact, I think it's probably the best placement might be bubbled out of top 16. I think Moraidon's just kind of falling off right now. I think Charizard's such a bad matchup. I don't know. I think Moraidon's kind of starting to lose groundswell in the format. I think it's still an okay play. I mean, there's definitely going to be Moraidons in day 2, and maybe we'll even see a Moraidon on stream. But I don't think Moraidon's going to touch the top 8 or top 16. I think Moraidon's going to flop this weekend. Unfortunately, probably only maybe get, like, bubbled out top 16, probably top 32 at best. I think that's going to be the highest placing Moraidon deck we're going to see. I don't think it's going to get top 8. I just don't think Moraidon's it. I mean, it doesn't seem bad against Lugia, and with how popular Lugia is, it's not bad, but I still don't think it's great against Charizard, and even though Lugia is really not a bad matchup, I just think its matchup spread right now is a little shaky, and with how popular Charizard is, I would probably not touch with a 10-foot pole. Not to mention, the Lost Zone matchup also doesn't seem great, so I don't know. I would probably weave and dodge on Moraidon right now. Mew is definitely interesting. So Mew's kind of on the downswing right now. Obviously, with how popular Charizard is, Mew kind of sucks. But this really cool, like, Mew grabber deck seems enticing. So the idea behind this deck is you, like, Judge Path Charizard, and then you grabber the Charizards out of their hand so they can't go Rare Candy Charizard. It's kind of a cool concept. But yeah, I think Mew's still going to be played. We're probably going to see a couple Mew, maybe even in top 16, maybe even in top 8, maybe in top... I don't know if it can get top 8. If somebody figures out how Mew can beat Charizard, maybe it gets top 8. I know this grabber build, like I said, could be Charizard, but I can see Mew maybe getting a top 16 placement. There's going to be a couple players on Mew. It's still a very good deck. It has a great matchup spread right now, in my opinion. And despite the Charizard matchup, that's all you got to dodge. Is dodge Charizard, and I think Mew's still a good play. Nobody plays Spiritomb anymore. Drapion is sometimes in Turbo, but I can see Turbo cutting Drapion this weekend just because of how, less popular Mew is right now. It feels like one of those decks that is primed to be good. You just gotta weave and dodge the Charizard matchups. And, of course, with Rapid Strike potentially being a good play this weekend, I can see Mew doing well. Definitely a Mew in top 16 is a very big possibility. Now I want to talk about some Arc Piles. We're getting into the more roguier stuff now that we've kind of got out of the big meta decks. I do want to talk about Arc Piles. I think Arceus is in a very interesting spot. It definitely feels worse to play Arc now because the Zard matchup's scary depending on what you play. I think that your Moraidon matchup's always been bad. Shenpao's another awkward matchup for you. And, of course, Lugia could be bad, too. I still think Arc is worth trying out, though. It still seems like it's an okay play. It depends on how you build it. So Arc Dura's been getting a bit of rumors right now of seeing some play due to how good Duraludon is against Mew. Mew does not have a way to beat Arc Dura. Or Lugia, sorry, not Mew. Lugia. Yeah, Lugia can't really beat Arc Dura because even though, they have the Mew, they only play one Mew and you can easily knock that out. Nobody plays Urshifu anymore. I don't think Urshifu is worth playing this weekend anyways, so I 100% see somebody playing Arctura and do well with it. If somebody just hits enough Mew or Lugia, why do I keep saying Mew? They hit enough Lugia, I can see an Arctura get day 2. It'd be exciting to see. I do think we might see a couple funky Arc Pile decks in day 2 of Peoria because it's just always going to do well. And with the way the meta is, it's not bad. Again, with the bad Tina, Shenpao, Moraidon matchup, it's scary. Personally, if I'm playing Arc this weekend, I would consider trying out stuff like Flying Pikachu. Duraludon's a cool idea, but Duraludon's only going to help against Lugia. At that point, I'd rather play Pikachu because Pikachu has a more narrow, matchup spread where you can beat Lugia with Pikachu, you can beat Shenpao, you can even beat Moraidon sometimes. I'd rather play Pikachu over Duraludon, but Duraludon's still cool anyways. Leafeon could see some play. I've been seeing some Leafeon variants of Arc, Dura, or Arc in general on Limitless, and I think Mew's a really cute call in Arc right now. You can Rye onto it, you can Poppy with Mew. Mew EX is actually a really cool addition to Arc right now. I definitely wouldn't mind giving that a try either. But Arc Dura seems like a cool idea. We'll see if maybe it can get day 2. I think maybe one will get day 2. Somebody's going to be crazy and plays it. I like the idea of the Shenpao Palkia deck right now. Palkia seems like a bit of an underdog deck, but it does feel like it's maybe falling off a little bit. Its Charizard matchup's a little shaky. The Lugia matchup is shaky. You could, instead of playing Lost City, of course, now start playing Temple of Sinnoh in your Palkia deck to try to counter the Lugia decks. And I wouldn't hate Temple. I think Temple might be the better call right now instead of Lost City. But Palkia is still a fine deck. It's just very fine. I don't know if it's going to get day 2, though, but I think some people might play it. Maybe they'll miss day 2. Maybe they won't. Arc Tina seems like an okay play too right now. It does seem like the one Arc deck that maybe has the best chance of beating Lost Tina. Not by much, keep in mind, but just a little bit. Superior is also probably something you could play. I don't know if I would like Superior over Flying Pikachu. I think Pikachu might be better than Superior. Because Pikachu's really good into Pidgeot, it's really good into Shenpao, Moraidon sometimes, and then also, of course, the Lugia matchup. But Superior is not bad either because it does make the Charizard matchup more winnable, but you can sometimes just beat Charizard by just Judge Pathing into Oblivion. But yeah, Arctina seems good. I think we'll see maybe 1 or 2 Arctinas in day 2. It's a fairly mid deck, but it's a mid enough deck that somebody can just get forward that, they win enough coin flips, they get enough Judge Paths to stick. Arctina's got a pretty good shot of just doing well this weekend, so I can see a couple in day 2. We'll have to see if they're going to play the Serp or not, or the Pikachu. I think Pikachu's better than Serp, but, it is what it is. Arc Keys is surprisingly on the come-up right now, or not even on the come-up, but is a deck that some people are talking about in the format. Now, Arc Keys is a deck, obviously, from the old Scarlet and Violet meta, where the idea was you Clef Key to shut off Mew, and shut off Genesect, obviously, and then shut off Comfey. And then you have Aerodactyl, which can be Lugia. Now, with how popular Lugia is right now, there's actually a good reason to play Aerodactyl. If you go Path Klefki against Lugia, you try to make it really hard for them to Summoning Star, and then if you get to pull off the Aerodactyl, you're probably winning that game. Now, obviously, with Snorlax being popular, you can't Evil Tall loop Lugia anymore, but I still can see Arc Keys being a deck that some people might bring as an underdog deck. It's not the worst deck on the planet. Well, I don't think it's the best deck either. It's not the worst deck ever. I think you probably want to play the Alolan Vulpix in the deck so you have a better matchup into Gardevoir and Charizard, because I don't know if this deck actually beats Charizard at all, because I think that once you kind of get past the point where Charizard does 300 damage, you're probably losing the game. But I think Arc Aerodactyl is a pretty cool deck, and with how popular Lugia is, it's not a bad play. And I think Arc Keys also, it's got a good Lost on matchup. It's got a good, its Kyogre matchup shaky, but the Turbo matchup is not bad at all. The Turbo matchup is very free. And then, of course, he's got to figure out how to beat the Guardian matchup. Maybe play Mawile, maybe not. I don't know. Play Vulpix, play Mawile, up to you. But I can see Arc Keys doing well. Arc Vulpix, another archetype some people are kind of on the thought of playing. Vulpix seems okay because it can wall off a lot of decks like Gardevoir, sometimes Charizard. I'm 50-50 on Vulpix because against Colorless Lugia, for example, they'll just attack you with Mew. They can also attack you with Lugia V. It's not that hard to deal with Vulpix. I don't think Vulpix is that good, but it's okay. Somebody might play it. It's one of those cards I feel like somebody will play a Vulpix in their deck and do well with it and get day 2 with it. Maybe not Arc Vulpix, but some kind of Vulpix deck I can maybe see squeaking into day 2. Arc Slacking Hammer is another cool archetype. Another Arc control style deck is kind of cool. I just think Arc with Judge Path has to be good this weekend. You just have to figure out what you're playing, whether or not you're playing Pikachu or Superior or Tina or Aerodactyl or Vulpix, whatever fits your fancy. I like the idea of maybe playing like Arceus Pikachu Superior, like a complete counterbox deck, but I definitely can see something like this do well. But yeah, an arc like Judge Path deck just has to be good. Now, I want to talk about Sableye Radiant Charizard. So this deck definitely is a fun archetype now. Cyrus did play this to her, I think it was what, Pittsburgh? Yeah, she played at Pittsburgh, and she did decent with it. I think this deck is kind of cute. So the idea is you can easily get turn 2 Lost Mine with Sableye because you're able to use vacuums and comfies. Like, you're easily able to get to turn 2 Lost Mine. You do want to probably play Pidgeot and Drapion, but the Sableye Charizard deck is cool. I've even seen some new version of the deck playing Mirage Gate with Mew EX in the deck, which isn't a bad idea either. It would make a few of your awkward matchups a bit better, but Sableye Charizard is good. I think it's got a great matchup into this Charizard EX, unless they're playing Lost City. But I guess now that Arvinzard's playing Lost City, it's not as safe. But if you don't hit Arvinzard, it's not bad. I don't know. I think that this deck is cute, and I think it's going to have a couple decent day 2 placements because there will be some players that play the Sableye Radiant Charizard deck. I think it's still an alright archetype. You just, with Lost City kind of not being existent right now, it's not bad. And then, of course, we got Lost Goodra, another deck that's been randomly popping up in online tournaments and doing well, but Goodra might be on the come-up again. It might actually be on the come-up, and the idea of playing it with Zam, Mew, and Sableye does give you some pretty good backup attackers and some pretty good options in a game. I, no joke, could maybe see a Lost Zone Goodra deck getting day 2, and maybe a top 32 placement. Top 32 Goodra, I can 100% see happening. I think it's actually starting to get some groundswell right now, and that groundswell could cross over into a good performance this weekend. And then finally, I want to talk about Control, another deck that's been like kind of on the cusp right now. I mean, a few Control decks have been doing good in online tourneys. There's a few different ways to play it. But yeah, I just wanted to have like a general Control deck to show. But yeah, I think Control is like maybe okay right now. I could see somebody bringing Control to Peoria and doing well with it. It's one of those decks that kind of feels like nobody really thinks about it, nobody cares about it. And I think Control has great avenues into matchups like Charizard. Lost Zone could be tricky, but if somebody figures out a good Control list, I can 100% see Control getting day 2. Or doing well. Maybe not top 8, obviously not top 8, but doing well enough could be the thing. So, I guess to wrap it up, what deck do I think has the best chance of winning the tournament? I'm going to put money on either a Lost Zone variant or Gardevoir. Those are the 2 decks I think have the high chance of winning the tournament. Maybe Lugia, too. I think a Lugia deck could win. I think we'll see Guardian top 8. I think we'll see a Charizard in top 8, a Lost Box deck in top 8. Probably going to see a Lugia in top 8, too. And those are my meta predictions for Peoria Regionals. I am super excited for Peoria. I can't wait to watch and see what decks are going to be played and what people bring to the tables and what archetypes end up doing well. This, of course, will decide Sacramento and then, of course, Toronto at the end of the month, which is a big one because I will be, of course, in attendance at Toronto. But hope you enjoyed the video here on the channel. Let me know what you think of the meta predictions. Do you have any meta predictions that you are interested in? So leave them down below if you have any interesting meta predictions and all that good stuff. And yeah, that'll be it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all later on the second channel. I think we're going to get some new card reveals tonight. So yeah, see y'all later. Bye-bye.